Hello everybody, my name is Jamal Mokeddem and I will be presenting a continuation of my previous presentation I did earlier in the semester on USB-based attacks. The USB-based attack I'll be looking at today is performed using the USB rubber ducky, which was developed by Hack5, which is an organization you can look into for a lot of different hacking tools. So this attack is basically going to run in, when you plug in the USB device, it will go into memory, take all your uh, passwords that are stored in the cache, and upload them to the destination that you tell it to send them to. So uh, basically what we're going to go through today is the USB rubber ducky and how it works, and then we'll go through the attack and how it works, and then the basic setup for the web server, and then how you host invoke Mimikatz and the PHP script on the web server. And then I'll go through basically what is Ducky script, how to write it, and then how to encode it and put it on the rubber ducky. And then I'll show you the results of it when it ran. So as you can see from the picture here, that looks similar to a USB mass storage device, but the rubber ducky actually is a bit different. There's the micro SD card there that stores your payload that you want to use, and then it actually registers when you plug it into a computer as a keyboard. And since it emulates a keyboard, it is able to start injecting keystrokes that you have stored on the micro SD card at ridiculous speeds. It's like 1,000 words per minute. And then, so basically, once you have everything on the setup done, there's a couple things that you have to do for the attack to work. It's just basically you plug it in and it'll do most of the work for you, I guess. But so there's the USB device. Once it plugs in, registers, gets the drivers, and then immediately starts injecting keystrokes. So it'll open up command prompt as administrator, run the PowerShell script that will retrieve invoke Mimikatz from your web server. Invoke Mimikatz will run and basically get the passwords out of memory, and then send the passwords to your PHP script that is on your web server. And so now I'm going to go through basically what you need to do to set up a web server. There's 4 basic parts. You have to have your operating system, which if you're on a computer, you have one already. Linux is the most commonly used, but since I am going to be doing this on my Windows machine, because the attack only works on Windows, I set up my web server on Windows as well. And then you will want to get Apache. I used an older version because I was having trouble getting the newer version to work. But if you watch YouTube videos on how to set up Apache, they'll walk you through how to do that. And it basically is the most common way to host your web server. MySQL is not necessarily needed for this because we're not using a database, but if you're setting up a web server, you might need it in the future, so I set it up anyways. And then there's PHP, which you need in order to have any PHP scripts on your website, which you need for this attack, so I set that up as well. For more details on how to set up each of these, I have the references that has the video I used to go through it. I don't want to go through each one because that would take a half hour to do. But basically, once you have it set up, if you go to localhost before setting it up, it won't work. But once you go there, you'll have, it says index of, and it'll show all your things that are saved there. And if you click on index, it'll show it works. So next, we're going to go through basically how to put invoke Mimikatz onto your web server. So basically, if you go on GitHub and you search invoke Mimikatz, there's the author of it named Climber, and you can basically just copy the script and save it on your computer in the spot where all your web server files go. And the best way I've found to do it is to do it in Notepad++. If you try doing it other ways, it's tough to get to save as a PowerShell file, which you need to do, which is the extension PS1 at the end. So basically, once you have that set up, that's all you have to do for invoke Mimikatz. There's a lot to it. I'm not going to go through how the entire thing works, but basically, because it's about 3,000 lines of code. Basically, though, it will go in and detect what version you are on of Windows, whether it's 32 or 64-bit, and then once it knows that, it will then determine how to go into memory and get the passwords. Once it has them, then you basically save them to a variable and upload them to the web server. And once you send the passwords to the web server, that's where the PHP script comes in, because this just sits on your web server and is listening for incoming things sent to it. When they're sent there, it creates a file and stores the contents in the file. And so it's a very simple script, and it's not much to write. And so once you have that all set up, you'll have your local host, or if you actually want to pay to host it online, you can do that. But I didn't want to pay to set up an actual web server that you can access from other places, so I had to set up on my local machine. And so you'll have your PHP script that'll get the credentials when they come in. You'll have your PowerShell script that will get downloaded by the Rubber Ducky when you plug it into the computer. And all right, so now we'll go into actually how you write your Ducky script that will get encoded and put on the Rubber Ducky. It's a very simple language. There's really just a couple different keywords. REM is for a remark, works the same way as comments. Anything you put after it in a line won't get executed. Delay just tells it to wait that many milliseconds before it runs the next part of the script, which is mainly used because, let's say you are opening up command prompt. You want to give it that half second for command prompt window to open. Or once the script is running, you want to give it enough time to finish the script before you close out of command prompt, otherwise it's not going to work. Then string is basically just tells it to inject those exact keystrokes, like letter for letter. And then enter is just the enter key. And so as far as encoding your Ducky script, once you have it, there's a lot of tools. There's some that you can do that are just HTML ones. Other ones are executables that you download. I was having trouble with HTML scripts, so I just downloaded this one and basically just copy your Ducky script into the program and hit encode and compile, and it will create an inject.bin file, which you just put into the micro SD card that is going to go in the Rubber Ducky. And generally you'll need the standard SD card adapter to be able to actually put it into your computer to be able to put it on there. But once it's on there, you just put it in the Rubber Ducky and you are set to go. So now I'm going to go through actually what each line of that script does. So basically to start, you have your 1000 delay, which is just gives it 1 second to register that, hey, there's a new keyboard plugged in. And then it hits GUI-R, which is just going to be Windows key R, which opens up the run line, which will look like the top right picture. And then it'll type in the string PowerShell start process, and that will open up your command prompt in Administrator. And Alt-Y is the next thing, which basically brings, when you try to open an Administrator, it asks you, are you sure you want to be able to make changes to your computer? And you get to yes, Alt-Y is yes. The next thing you want to do to make it so that it's less obvious that this is running, because a lot of times you'll be somewhere where there's people that can maybe see the computer because the person that is at the computer maybe went to the printer or something, but someone nearby can still see it. So basically what you want it to do is make the command prompt as tiny as possible and hard to see so that people won't pay attention to it. There's a couple different commands that I found that you can use. Basically you can reduce the size, which 18 by 1 is the smallest you can make it. And then you can change the title, which basically instead of saying administrator command prompt at the top, it would just say whatever you tell it to. I put it as a blank one, so just say administrator. But at the end of the day, when you make it small, you can't see it anyway, so it didn't actually matter. And then after that, you have your color, and you want to change the background to white and the foreground to yellow is the way that I saw to do it, just because that is extremely difficult to read and see anything happening. And so basically your command prompt will go from the top picture to that little bottom picture. And then this is going to be where all the actual magic happens now, is actually running this main script, where basically it'll say in PowerShell, invoke expression, and it'll run that entire thing, which basically says download string from your server, which is invoke mimikatz, and then the variable output is going to be when you run invoke mimikatz using dump creds, which goes in, gets the passwords, and stores them in the output, and then you have your new object net web client, which basically will send it back to your server, uploading the string to your PHP file, which will then take them, create a file, and store it on your web server. And the delay is, again, 15 seconds just to give it time to run. Might need to put a little more time into it because I've had times where it doesn't run quick enough, but on my other computer it seems to work fine. So I tried to keep it as short as possible to just be efficient. And then you want to make sure that you are cleaning up, that way it is less obvious that anything ever happened. So basically, if you look at the top right picture, that's what your run line will look like. If you don't run this, it has that script that you ran, which isn't too harmful in this particular attack, but other ones it'll be much more detailed into like maybe what you were doing. But basically, if you run this next string in PowerShell, it will go in and clear out your run line and the registry files, so that there won't be any evidence of what you ran. And then your results end up being, the pictures are a bit small, but you can see there's a new file on the web server, which is the name of the computer plus the date and time that it was ran. And on the right-hand side, you can see that the file is also in the file navigator. And so if you open up that creds file using Notepad++, you will get this. And you definitely want to use Notepad++. Don't try opening it in Notepad, and Notepad is just a big mess and you can't read it. But if you open it in Word or Notepad++, it'll be very legible. And as you can see from the part that I highlighted, it has my username as well as my temporary password that I made for demonstrating this, along with a bunch of other things, like you have your NTLM hashes, which are the way that the original Mimikatz would actually crack passwords rather than getting the clear text passwords. But this one, you just get clear text, so you don't have to deal with those. So one thing to note about this approach is that you do need to have the computer logged into. It can't work unless it's logged into and you can actually get into the command prompt. So if somebody locks their computer when they get up, it's not going to be useful. So that's one limitation. Also, it only works on Windows because all the keystrokes you're injecting are specific to Windows. If you hit the Windows key R on Linux, it's not going to do what you want it to do. Same with Mac. Also, Microsoft has been getting better at detecting these attacks that don't go onto the hard drive and just go into memory. And so it doesn't currently work on Windows 10. I've had to try a couple different versions to get it to work on Windows 7 even. But there are newer updated versions of Mimikatz that come out all the time. So I assume that over time there will be another one that works on Windows 10 for a bit and it'll stop working again. And then here are the references that I used. The top two were videos made by the organization Hack5, and that's where they actually make the rubber ducky. And they also went through basically how to do the attack. They went through first how to do it with the rubber ducky being used as not only a keyboard but also mass storage, so you don't have to go to the web server. It just pulls the program from the USB and then saves the passwords to the USB. And then the second one goes through how to do it with the web server. I decided to go with the web server version because it gave me a little more to learn with setting up a web server. And then you have the third video, which basically goes through how to set up the web server, and then the invoke mimikatz that I used is the fourth one. Thanks.